Hi. Hey, John here. It's been a while. So, um I didn't really plan to come back to YouTube this suddenly. I had a project in the works where I wrote a script and I was planning on recording some bits before actually showing what it looked like. Uh didn't really pan out the way I had imagined it would. And but I'm doing this and Uh, I guess this is my return to YouTube in quotation marks. I don't know. Um, I guess some news is that I'm not an avatar anymore, which is good and bad. Um, but yeah. Anyway, the reason why I wanted to make this video was really to discuss something um, that really frustrated me, and it's a really sad story, uh, especially as someone who is a really big fan of the show called Terrace House. For those who don't know, Terrace House is a Japanese reality TV show where three girls and three guys live in a house together, and uh, they do various things and they have various interactions. Some fall in love, some are really, really crazy. And there's a group of commentators that will comment on the actions of people who live in the house. Now, there was a person who was still living at the house, not at this time because of the coronavirus, obviously, but uh, this pro wrestler in Japan whose name was Hana Kimura. She was she was living in the house for a very long extended period of time, and uh, last night she unfortunately passed away because of suicide. So sorry, it's a little hard recording this, but um, so upon seeing that Hana Kimura had committed suicide, uh, honestly, I was pretty shocked because how could someone so positive and bubbly and you know had someone who had a clear direction in life as a pro wrestler uh, do something like that to herself? And I realized later, based on posts uh, from the media and from other outlets, and actually previous house guests in previous seasons commented on this issue as well, uh, that she had actually committed suicide because of cyberbullying. Now, I was confused at first as to why, how she had, received all this hate seemingly overnight, and um, and it turns out that it had to do with an episode that had recently aired on Fuji TV and on Netflix. Um, if you don't know, for the Americas and everywhere else around the world, Terrace House is actually released in batches, but in Japanese Netflix, uh, it's actually released weekly. So there was a episode released very recently, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, uh, where there was this double date between Hana and this other guy and these two other people who were living at the house. And the whole situation in itself was kind of awkward because uh, the two other people who were going on this double date were sort of into each other artificially. The connection wasn't really there, and then Hana was going because she liked this other guy, but that guy kind of turned out to be a let's just say kind of a loser. and his behavior sort of reflected that based on their observations. So where it kind of culminates is, she's this pro wrestler and she has these outfits, right? And she put her outfits in the dryer, and then this guy she was interested in actually took the outfits and washed them with his clothes by accident, which ruined her outfits pretty much indefinitely. And those outfits are custom fit. They cost thousands of dollars. Kind of hard to replace. So, but as you sort of find out, based on her frustrations, in the couple of episodes that recently aired, it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily the outfits themselves that she was mad about in particular. It was how lazy this guy was, because this guy that she was interested in, he was like a stand-up comedian, so to speak, or he was a aspiring stand-up comedian, and the show actually airs some of his stand-up sets. They're actually pretty bad. They're pretty bad. Anyone who watches them, either if you're Japanese or anyone internationally who would see this guy, is kind of pathetic. So this person, Hana, there's a scene in one of the episodes where all these observations about this guy and the costume issue sort of culminate into like this scene where she is berating this guy for being a total loser, one, and two, being irresponsible with his actions and no kind of direction in life. And three, the fact that she had to work so hard to get to where she is, and he's just sort of lounging around and not paying for meals and this sort of thing. And the whole scene sort of ended with her smacking this guy's hat off because she was just so incredibly angry. I thought that scene, it was fairly clear. Yes, she probably should not have reacted that way, but when I saw that, I thought she was pretty justified in her anger. I thought that the fact that he was not contributing at all to the necessities and the needs of the house, and he wasn't working on really improving himself and just being a good housemate in general, I would have thought that, she was in the right. She was totally right all along about this. And so I didn't think that people would bully her for that, but that's apparently what caused her demise. Was apparently these rotten people on Twitter, from what I can tell, I think most of them were Japanese wrestling fans. They took the guy's side for some reason, and basically they told this girl to kill herself, and or something along those lines. And I think that if they knew anything about the show, they would be able to tell that she was pure and fragile and not very malleable to the really angry culture that's online today. And I think it's just really, really sad that someone that pure of heart can't even it's like there's barely a place for those people online, and that makes me really sad. That in order to be successful online, you have to be this angry, bombastic sort of personality who's not infallible at all in order to get any attention whatsoever. But alas, with all of that being said, we are currently in this situation right now. And I guess I wanted to take a second to just remind people that when you're conversing with someone over social media, you don't really know who's on the other side. And the person who's on the other side could be going through a lot of problems that you're currently not experiencing. So it's always good to be mindful of what you say to that person, right? Given on the context. Now, I understand that in communities that I've hung out in the past, like political communities, are very desensitized by this sort of discourse and banter. Political commentators are very used to people going to their YouTube videos or Twitter feeds and calling them dipshits and idiots and retards or whatever. People, they're used to this. It's part of the game, honestly. And honestly, I'm not asking for things like, for trolls to be unmasked and for anonymity to be forfeited or any of this. I just hope that people in the future can be more mindful when it comes to discussing things with individuals online and conducting themselves in a mature way online. And, to be generally respectful of people. Even if you really, really don't like them. And I know in the past I've sort of contributed to that a little bit, and throughout this past year I've sort of reflected on that, and even through this I've even reflected on that even more and realized that I'm not going to contribute to toxic online culture by being this, outraged sort of person who reacts at every single thing that I don't like. So, I guess that being said, I kind of want to take this video in a direction that not a lot of people are talking about, and that involves what comes next. And, obviously, there's a huge discussion that still needs to be opened up a lot more with regards to not even just Terrace House, to reality TV in general. I feel like there's a huge can of worms that can be opened up in terms of what is the purpose of reality TV and what is the anticipated effect of reality TV on the people who consume it and the people who participate in it and the people who comment on the reality TV shows. Like, what's the point of all this? And is it really healthy for us to do this? And I think it's a really important question to ask because people just a lot of people just regard reality TV as just sort of this kind of flippant thing that people just look at for a couple seconds and then they turn their eyes away from. And I think with this situation on our hands, we know that there's a very dark side to reality TV that's not being discussed, and I think there should be a more honest discussion about this in the future. As for the current season of Terrace House, I am sort of expecting that it's going to be very hard moving forward in its current form. I see it as very difficult for it to continue without Hana, or for the show to pretend like nothing happened. And I believe the Terrace House is being postponed for airing for 2 weeks because of this. But that may even change. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know if this season is going to get cut entirely. They still have a lot of footage to get through, but I feel like with the coronavirus and also this happening, I don't think Terrace House 2020 is going to return in its current form. And I mean, that's sad, but that's, you have to do what you can to respect the families who are mourning the loss of such a promising individual, and give them their space. And there could potentially be a lot more things involved here, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time speculating all of the surrounding factors that may contribute to other occurrences within this space. I think we'll have to just wait and see what happens. I'm not sure how the directors of Terrace House are responding to this. But that all being said, I do really just want this to be as respectful to Hana's memory as possible. And I suppose I just wanted to take some time and say thank you for making Terrace House 2020 the most enjoyable season yet. And it's really sad to see Hana go. So, yeah, I suppose that's really all I wanted to say. Before I leave, I do want to go over a couple of housekeeping things. So you'll notice that I have a new profile picture, and that was drawn by this person. And you can go to her Twitter account and ask for commissions, because I believe she is currently taking commissions still, and she is very generous, and I'm very thankful for her making my profile picture look as cool as possible. So if any of you need commissions, I would totally recommend you consult her, because she's very good at this. And I hope the next videos that I make will be a lot less somber than this. I hadn't made a video in a year and a half about, and I really just wanted to get my opinions and thoughts out there. There could be a chance I can do a more scripted and edited video in the future regarding the social impacts of reality TV as it stands. That seems like a really interesting topic that is sort of been ignited by my feelings towards this. So that could be a possibility in the future too. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, because I have a lot of projects in the works that are not related to YouTube. But see you around.